From the time she joined her family at 7, when she went to join her daddy, I just put together 10 things that I loved about her. And one was her smile, and when she packed her pencil case full of pens, and when she beeped Christine's car, and the hugs that she gave me, and her happiness when she sit in the big chair and open all her birthday gifts. She loved that. And when she waited for me to help her down the stairs, and her choice of only vanilla pudding, which we have honored today. And having her radio on all night, so whenever I woke up, I could hear it. And her kiss goodnight. Thank you.
I have a feeling
Okay.
this will be longer.
So we have lots and lots of people here today. I don't know if everybody knows who each other are. We're just meeting some people for the first time because Kayla had a lot of friends and a lot of people involved in her life and a literally short-term memory. So sometimes you would ask her how the day went and she would say, fine, but you never knew anything beyond that. So it's nice to meet some of her, especially some of her Brody friends who I haven't met before. So I'm Kayla's sister, Tori, and so I'm going to jump around a little bit. But so Kayla came to live with my parents when she was 7 years old, and she right away, so 26 years ago, she lived with mom and dad for 26 years and was so special to our family. So when she joined our family, right away, she just fit right in. I remember right up front, probably the second weekend, she was there sitting curled up under a blanket with her watching the Daytona 500 for a very long race. And she didn't care. She just loved being hugged and sat there cuddled up the entire time. She shared a few fun little things with various family members. With my brother Andrew, she loved it when he played the guitar. She liked all of the silly things he would do. He would dance with her, although probably not admit it, but it's in some of the pictures. And she just had a way of making you kind of lose yourself and join her in whatever fun thing she was doing. My bonus sister, Tiffany, who is back in the Barney shirt and Barney Crocs in honor of Kayla. Tiffany joined our family about 3 years after Kayla, and they grew up together. And Tiffany had all kinds of fun things to add to this celebration of life today. Including, if you notice at the front doors, Kayla loved her fashion, so we have bracelets and things to honor her fashion sense. Tiffany and Kayla would have dance parties after school every day when Tiffany got home from school up in her bedroom. They had a shared love for honey buns. And Tiff and Kayla went on many family vacations with mom and dad, including Florida, and there's some great pictures around of their travels and the fun they had. In addition to, they loved going places like Center Island and Santa's Village and all those fun kid places. My husband Steve, his thing with Kayla when she first moved in was shoulder rides. He could lift her, because she was much smaller, up on his shoulders and spin her around in knob hill boxes and the like. And actually his name she learned before mine. She knew who I was for about 4 months, but couldn't pull the name Tori out of her mind. But Steve, she got right off the top, and it's Steve every time she saw him. My sister-in-law, Fran, her biggest claim to fame, I think, with Kayla most recently was the chanting of Kayla's name that got added to every birthday celebration. And after we'd sing all the birthday songs, and in various languages. Then we would have to chant, Kayla, 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 until we escalated to a round of cheers. And in fact, Kayla has a shirt that says, Kayla, Kayla, because that was a very important thing to her. And then also, as Andrew and I grew our families, and both of us had kids, we have who Kayla referred to as the kids. It was Billy and Vivian, who are my children, and Lily and Sebastian, who are Andrew and Fran's kids. And they were a constant source of fun, but sometimes a bit too much noise. But I remember her feeding my son actually and my daughter when they were in high chairs, and she just loved it that she would sit and get to feed them their food. And but Kayla's whole world was her mommy and daddy. They were her everything. Right from the minute she moved in, Dad took her to every doctor's appointment, and there were lots. He used to only half joke that the only clinic at sick kids that they never visited was the oncology one. Every other clinic, dental, vision, hematology, every single one, Dad and Kayla hit up. And Dad and Mom were just her whole world. Whenever you were over there, she was either sitting on someone or cuddled up next to them, or couldn't get enough of them. Like I mentioned before, they went on lots of trips, but they also went on fun little outings that Kayla loved, like Tim Hortons, but not the one in Bowmanville. They would drive to the one in Curtis because it was a little bit further. And they would go strictly for a donut and coffee. That was it, because Kayla loved her coffee. They also would go on outings to the grocery store, where she and Dad would travel around the grocery store, and Mom, but Mom worked for a little longer than Dad, so often it was just Dad. And when they changed the carts at Metro, it was very hard to push a wheelchair and pull a cart behind you with the two-tiered system. One day Dad was at the cash register, and the lady said, "Oh, did you find everything you wanted?" And most of the people at Bowmanville Metro knew Kayla and Dad to come through each week for groceries. And Dad said, "Well, it is a little tricky, with the cart, because I have to lean down to pull the cart and push a chair, but it's okay." And the next time they went back, the two of them went in, and Kayla was in her wheelchair, and one of the cashiers came running over and said, Oh, just wait, Mr. Smales. And they had gone and taken several of the old carts that are just one level and brought them back and said, "There's always going to be one here for you and Kayla when you come shopping. And if you can't find it, just come and mention it to anyone on staff and we'll get it for you." And that was the kind of devotion and just niceness that was always extended to Kayla from everyone who met her. It probably helped that when she would go through the grocery store, she'd wave at people and she would tell them they were cute, indiscriminately, complete strangers. That was okay. Another fun thing about Mommy and Daddy that sticks in my mind is my mom is a knitter and is knitting all the time, and Kayla loved to be just like Mommy and Daddy, so Kayla knit too, which involved a large ball of wool that she would just kind of knead with her fingers. But as soon as Mom would get out her knitting, Kayla would knit too. And they would sit and knit for however long Mom knit, Kayla knit too, and the knot just got bigger and bigger. She also, when Kayla moved in, she didn't really speak. She hadn't had a lot of time, I guess, around family, but she had to relearn a few things, and one of them was speech. And she picked up, my father had a bit of an accent from growing up in England, and some of her words were said just like that. So it was never the car, it was the car. And it was never the mall, it was the mall. And it took us a little while to figure out where it was coming from, but she spent so much time with Mom and Dad that she emulated everything they did. Right down to the morning coffee. Dad would have his coffee, and Kayla, as a 7-8-year-old at the time, sitting next to him with her drink. And Dad, we didn't realize, he would sip his coffee and put the mug down and go, And Kayla started doing it, and it took us the longest time to figure out why she kept kind of giving a little at the end of every sip of her drink. And then one day, Mom noticed that Dad did it after every sip of coffee, so Kayla did too, for years and years. The other little thing that always tugs my heartstrings is Kayla loved to be like Mom. So when Mom would be putting on her makeup in the morning, she would have to get a blush brush and dust Kayla's face too, so that she was putting on her makeup. And then they shared a bottle of Happy perfume, which is an appropriate perfume for Kayla to wear, but it had to be the same bottle, and they would each have a couple of spritzes every morning before she headed off to her day program. And if Mom forgot, Kayla would remind her that she needed her Happy, which was kind of funny. There was another really important person in Kayla's life for the last, I'm gonna say at least 17 years, and that's her best friend, Christine. So Christine's here today. So Christine rode the same bus as Kayla for a little while when Kayla was going to CCSS, and Dad noticed this teenage girl who was so kind with Kayla, and they really, she was hanging out with her and sat with her and sang with her, and so Dad suggested maybe she'd like to come and spend some time with Kayla and help with a little respite, and that turned into a relationship that was so special to Kayla. She couldn't get enough of Christine. They had their own sets of little memories and traditions, including beeping Christine's car that Mom mentioned, which involves sitting on the porch and pressing the lock button again and again so that Christine's car would beep. And they would sit out there and beep the car every time Christine came over, which turned into every Sunday for years and years. Another thing that they used to do, which actually in some of Kayla's final days they did at the hospital, Christine would bring her earbuds for her music, and Kayla was a lover of all things music, and Christine would put in one ear pod and put another one in Kayla's ear, and they would listen to music and they would sing. And actually when Kayla was in the hospital the last week, they did that, and Kayla tried to sing. And that's how important it was to her, and how much she loved her traditions, and how much she loved Christine. I have my own memories about Kayla. I'm just gonna pull myself together. Kayla was my munchkin. That's what I called her. She called me my Sista Tori K. For whatever reason, my name was never Tori. It was Tori K, hyphenated. We don't know why. It just was. We had a few favorite things we liked to do. We would go on car rides, but a little different from Mom and Dad. We would put the windows down and play music really, really loud and sing really loud. And actually, we had a Kayla playlist that she loved. One of the first things she ever said to me, to any of us in a full sentence was, "I like your hair," just like that. And she would hold your hair and pet it and tell us how much she liked our hair. Also, this was a funny thing. Kayla went to different schools and then eventually day programs, and she would come home with these elaborate crafts, beautiful crafts. Kayla didn't have a lot of dexterity, and actually her one hand was permanently like this, which made one wonder. But, Mom and Dad would ask questions like you do any small child coming back from a program. "Oh, did you make this, Kayla? Did you make this craft?" And she would say, "No, teacher did it." So we would get these beautiful crafts, and they always went on the fridge, and she was very proud of them, but she was also very clear that she didn't make those, the Father's Day gifts, the Mother's Day gifts. So one year I decided maybe we would actually have her make something for Mom and Dad. So we went to Crockadoodle, and actually Vivian, my daughter, came with us several years, and sometimes it was just us, and we would paint something. So we would pick something, we did a vase, we did a platter, And then we would just hold up 2 brushes and Kayla would pick which one she wanted. And then we give 2 of the paint names that are all silly there that would make her laugh. And she would pick one and she would direct the whole thing. And if there was one splotch of paint on the whole thing, well then that's fine. If that was done, that was done. But it was something she truly made. And the first year we did it, we always did it around Christmas, I foolishly said when I picked it up, okay, we'll wrap it together. You know, you can help. That took 45 minutes. You can help. We'll wrap this square tray together and then we'll put it under the Christmas tree for Mommy and Daddy. Kayla, everything had to be instantaneous. So as soon as we wrapped the gift and we went to put it under the tree, she instead hobbled right over to Mom and Dad and had them open it right away. It had taken us 45 minutes and it was open not even 5 minutes after it was wrapped because she was just so proud and happy and wanted them to have it. One other funny, I used to take Kayla to do silly things because it was fun and she liked to laugh. So one of the things we did is I thought, well, in Bowmanville, the fish jump, and everybody likes to go to the fish ladder and watch the fish jump. And I thought, I'm gonna take Kayla. There's a paved path. We have to go off-roading a little bit with the wheelchair, but that'll be okay. So we did. And I was so excited to take her, and I said, oh, we're gonna see the fish, And we hike in to where the fish ladder is, and all she could say was, it's stinky, I don't like this, it's stinky. She was so ticked off at me for dragging her in to see the fish because they smelled, which they do, but it was a very typical Kayla thing. Some of you might notice looking around today that this is a little bit more of a birthday party than it is a celebration of life/funeral. Anybody who was close to Kayla, really close, or well, even not so close, would know that Kayla's birthday was the end-all, be-all to her life. Always was. When she first moved in, her very first, Christmas, what would you like for Christmas, Kayla? My birthday. Always wanted her birthday. Mom would bake a birthday cake for years and years, and we would sing happy birthday. Sometimes to Jesus, sometimes not, but always to Kayla, because she loved her birthday, and her birthday was always coming soon. Even January 20th, which was my husband's favorite day because it was the day after Kayla's birthday, and he would phone my parents and say, is it coming soon, David? Is it coming soon, Francis? Because Kayla would ask endlessly, almost daily, my birthday coming soon? And you always said yes. She had a lot of traditions around her birthday. One of the big ones was when she would go grocery shopping with Dad, she liked to look in the flower department. So every birthday, Mom and Dad would take her to Metro and she got to pick out a bouquet of flowers for her birthday. She also always got a blue bouquet from her best friend, Christine, always. And for years, a video birthday message, which she would then watch before bed every single night for the next year, twice. That had to be the last video, and you had to watch it twice, or she wouldn't go into her room for bed. She would get tons and tons of little presents because the fun was sitting and unwrapping them. And always at her birthday parties, there were 2 foods. There was pizza for all of us and a Big Mac for Kayla. And Big Macs were so super, super important to her. They were also her special treat on every transfusion day when she came home. Even if she couldn't eat it that day and had to save it for the next day, she always, you had to get her Big Mac, or double Big Mac as it became later. And on a fun twist, today is actually McHappy Day, which Mom and I noticed as we were developing all these pictures. And the money from McHappy Day, I believe, goes towards Ronald McDonald Charities, which kind of encompass, amongst other things, people who need somewhere to stay when their kids are in the hospital. So if you want to honor Kayla tonight, maybe think about McHappy Day, because my goodness, nobody loved her Big Macs more than Kayla. On her birthday day, there was endless singing and chanting, and I mean endless singing of the birthday song. In Spanish, in English, in French. We would often do the Are You One, Are You Two, all the way up to whatever year we were at. She's the only person I would do that for because 33 is a long way to go, but we did. And Kayla always had some sort of headwear on, either a tiara or her favorite hat here. But there was always some sort of birthday fanciness going on. Kayla had another part of her life, and it was her friends at Brody's. Brody's is a fantastic day program that she's gone to for I think 13 years, something like that. It's over a dozen. She's had lots and lots of friends there. We've only just met some of them because, again, doesn't remember a whole lot, but there are some that we also would get to see when we go and see her there. She would take, mom and dad would drive her in. She would go and spend the day there, and they would dance, they would sing. She apparently did puzzles there, which is not something she would do at home. There were stories, and Kayla always called it school. It was never Brody's, it was never a day program, it was school. And she loved, loved, loved going. One of my favorite crafts that she did there is on the wall at Mom and Dad's, and it says, it's from Thanksgiving, and it says, what am I thankful for? And very clearly, the staff there would have her share what she was thankful for and write it on the sheet. So there were 4 spots. The first one is Mommy and Daddy, as a given. The second one was Brody friends, also a given. The third one is candy, and the fourth one is my hat. And this is kind of how Kayla lived, in the moment, and whatever she enjoyed the best. That was what went on the art, or that was the front of her mind. Kayla was one of the strongest people that I've ever known, and certainly the exception to every single rule, from her health right down to just her whole outlook in life. Everything was the exception. You know, her health, many of you will know she had sickle cell anemia, but she didn't just have that. She also had a number of other things that nobody else seems to have that would, cause doctors never knew quite what to do with her. Nothing was ever easy. In fact, her last week when she was in Toronto General, I think we met the entire hematology team there, and where you normally may see a specialist once a day, we would see them 4 or 5 times a day. They were calling each other at home because Kayla was the exception, and again, nobody quite knew what to do with her. She was also the exception in that Kayla was with us, and probably a lot of you have heard this, but over 20 years longer than anybody ever predicted. When she came to live with Mom and Dad, she was 7, and they said 15 was a long shot, 13 was probably not even going to happen, and there were no provisions made for if she were to become 18, because all the doctors at Sick Kids that she saw, and like I said, every clinic said, that's not going to happen. So the fact that she turned 33 this year is, again, Kayla's strength and determination, and how she always had to do that little extra bit to keep everybody on their toes. Not that she didn't have health problems all through the years, but she would come back from the edge many, many times because she was just a tough cookie. Going back to some happier stuff, Kayla had a huge love of music, and you'll notice from the playlist, if you listen closely today when it turns back on, it's a little nuts. There's kids music, a whole lot of Barney, some Rappy, some Wiggles. There's dance music, there's country, there's oldies, there's Motown, there's disco. She loved it all. There was not a musical song that she did not care for. Although she had trouble learning lots of things, she could learn the words to a song without batting an eye. That's how she learned to count eventually. For years, we used to get these notes and her report card saying we're still working at counting to 8. And then we discovered Barney. Kayla loved Barney, and Barney sang 1, 2, buckle my shoe, and Kayla learned to count to 10 after years of report cards telling us we're still working on it. Barney did it. She loved anything with a beat. When she liked a song, you would hear a tapping foot all over the house. It would reverberate down to the basement. If you were in the car, you would hear it over the radio. She was a slave to the rhythm. In fact, when she first moved in and it was the time of dot matrix printers, she would dance to the dot matrix printer as things were printing. She would dance to the dryer when something was in the dryer clunking around. And that's not an exaggeration, she had a real sense of rhythm. Just about any song she heard, if she'd heard it before, she would tell you. She'd say, "Have that," or "In my room," meaning it was playing on the radio that was always on in her room, or "In the car," or "In my car." But she knew where she heard the song and that she had it. And she also was fairly musical herself. Just about every day that she came home from her day program, she would sit on the couch for the last few years, and she had a favorite toy, and it was a toy drum that Sebastian, my nephew, she associated with him because he drums, and I think he gave it to her, and she would sit and pull it out every single day she was at program, and she would play the drum for a little bit as she watched her first episode of Barney, and it was without fail. And if the drum wasn't there, you heard about it. You had to find it. It was kept in a very important spot, and it was a big part of her day. She had things she didn't like, and if Kayla didn't like something, you knew. Luckily, her bad moods were usually quite short-lived, and her good moods were fantastic. She just twinkled. But she never came around to bread. Never saw her eat bread in 27 years. She didn't like the cold, the rain, or the wind, and took them personally, much more than we would. She hated the idea of finger painting, and if you mentioned it, or painting, and didn't specify it wasn't finger painting, you heard about that too. It was too messy. She didn't like too much noise if it was kind of jerky, sort of loud, unexpected sounds. And to that end, I mentioned earlier when Andrew and I expanded our families and had kids, the kids as young people were very noisy, and Kayla would eventually get tired of it and suggest they go home. Unfortunately, Kayla seemed to associate the noise specifically with my son Billy. So regularly it would be heard, "Billy K, go home." Sometimes Billy wasn't there. Sometimes Billy wasn't even in the same town. But anybody making noise, it was "Billy K, go home," which we fondly referred to as the invitation to leave. Kayla also objected to slow cars and would wave them on, annoyed, when she was driving with Mom. She, for some reason, was particularly offended by a framed print that is in Mom's dining room. We don't know why, but she would sit looking at it and out of the blue say, "I don't like that," and flick at it. But in an act of rebellion, Mom has left it hanging. But nobody's ever been able to figure out what her particular concern was with that painting. It's fairly innocuous, but and the one thing that anybody who really knew Kayla knew is that she didn't like anything cold, especially not ice cream. But you had to warm up chocolate milk. If it was cold, she wouldn't even consider drinking it like an hour later because you tried to give it to her cold. Nothing cold, especially ice cream. And in a little surprise to all of us, after my father passed, and Kayla, we took her up, my husband and I, to her respite home for a week. And we were sorting through the bags and finding the spending money, and she was going to be there a little longer than usual. And so I asked if she had enough spending money, and they said, "Oh, well, we'll just get, a Happy Meal instead of a Big Mac, or, we won't go out for treats as much for ice cream." And I said, "What? Ice cream? Kayla doesn't eat ice cream. I said, "That's too cold, isn't it, Munchkin?" And she was standing with me and she kind of giggled. And then the worker said, "So she doesn't eat ice cream anymore?" And I said, "What? She's never eaten ice cream. Mom and Dad would pack goldfish crackers for her when they would take all of our children for ice cream because she didn't want Dairy Queen's ice cream. She would have her own separate picnic pack." Said, "She doesn't eat ice cream." "Well, she does when she's here. We go out at least once when she's here for ice cream." And I said, "Well, she's never eaten anything cold." And they said, "So no smoothies then either at breakfast?" And I said, "What?" And apparently for years and years, Kayla has had smoothies almost every second day at her respite facility and eats ice cream. Still wouldn't do it at home, but it was quite a smile for all of us. It was an absolute shock. Nobody could believe it. But when Kayla was happy, she was pure magic. She had a giant smile. She would cheer for you. When Mom would come home from work, she would cheer like it was the Academy Awards. There was cheering. She would run as best she could to the door, squealing. There'd be a one-armed hug. It was a good 5 minutes of pandemonium, and that was every single day until Mom retired. She charmed everyone who met her, and she had a lot of loves. You'll see a lot of them around here today. There's Barney and Lion King are heavy in the room because they were her absolute go-tos, as well as Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Little Mermaid, she loved pens on a rope for years and years. She would untwist them. She would toss the inside of the pen into the couch. She would take the lid on the rope and she would tie it into this giant knot, which I thought Dad was doing until one day when I asked him how he did it, he said, I don't tie the knot, she does. And it was like 24 pen lids in a giant knot, and she'd call it her pens, and you had to know where it was all the time in case she asked for it. Kayla had hundreds of little bags with all of her treasures in them. There was bracelets in there and necklaces like you see here today. There was ripped up paper, because who doesn't need torn up paper? There were pens, there were toy cars, and then there were her games. Kayla's games were calculators. When the kids started playing Nintendo DS's, Kayla also wanted to play, but she didn't like the noises, and she adopted a calculator as the equivalent. So Kayla would have tons of calculators, and I mean dozens and dozens. Oh, here comes Tiffany with one of the bags. This is one of Kayla's favorite bags, filled with all sorts of goodies. She would carry them all over the house. And in this one there's a little man. I see a dinky car. I see some pens, chapstick, because why not?
Without the lid.
Never with the lid, always without the lid. Because it's tidier that way.
And then the famous ripped up paper.
And then the ripped up paper. Every bag had ripped up paper. Kayla also had a strong love for cheesies. Dad and Mom did not, because Kayla also drooled a little bit, and cheesies are very hard to wash out. So we moved to corn twisties in a stroke of genius, which you'll see around the room. Please help yourself. And they were one of her absolute favorites. When she was little, first with us, Steve and I were one day at Costco, and they had a big bag of cheesies that would have come to Kayla's waist, and so we bought it for her. Partly because Kayla would love it, and partly because Mom and Dad would cry a little bit. It was a win all around as far as we were concerned. Kayla also loved shoes and vanilla pudding. So you'll see Kayla had pudding every single day, and we have over 100 pudding cups here. So later, please enjoy one or take it with you for your lunch tomorrow. And think of Kayla. Kayla was also a fashionista, which you'll notice pictures everywhere. She's wearing glasses. Kayla didn't wear glasses. None of those are real. Every single one of them was fake, and you had to pop out the lenses for her, and she would go through phases. Some of her actual favorites are here, but there's also some that we bought in case people want to try out her style and see how it goes. She loved hats that were birthday related, and for some reason, a Toyota hat that she got one day when she and Dad were in having the car service. There was absolutely nothing stylish about the hat, and she would not stop wearing it, much to Mom's horror. Mom spent a whole summer trying to introduce other ball caps that were a little more stylish to get this one away from her, but she was having none of it because some nice man gave it to her when she was at Toyota with Dad. So, marketing works. Kayla also used to, we talked about the calculators, she used to pocket them from school. When she went to CCSS, Dad got a note, for weeks. A calculator would come home every few days. Eventually, in the communication book, there was a note that said, "Hi, David, just wondering if you could return one or two of the calculators. It's coming up to report card time." And Kayla's taken them all. Dad had no idea she was pocketing them. When he would ask why she had them, she'd say, "Teacher, teacher gave it to me. So I thought they were just giving her calculators. Had a whole stash of so many calculators. Kayla had another fun quirk. Whenever she left the room to go up to bed, she would turn out all the lights. It didn't matter if there were 12 of you sitting at the table, she would turn out the lights. She would close all the doors, cupboards, and drawers as she walked by. And if you happened to be, standing in the middle of the door, you better move because she was closing it, whether you were there or not. And that was forever she did that. It was super funny. Kayla also, a funny little story that happened right here in this church. Kayla used to come to Sunday school here with mom and dad, and Steve and I used to bring our kids here. And the Sunday school was upstairs. Kayla would come in her wheelchair because walking any distance was a problem for her. And so she was always in her wheelchair every Sunday here. The Sunday school, all the kids are in the same room. So it was one big Sunday school. So our kids would be in there too. So one Sunday after church, Steve went up, my husband, to pick up our kids from Sunday school. And when he walked into the room, being one of Kayla's favorite people, she squealed, "Steve!" from across the room and stood up and ran across the room to hug him. Sunday school went silent. It was then the teachers realized they knew she could walk, but none of the kids did, and they thought Steve had performed some sort of miracle and Kayla had run across the church to get to him. And that is a true story, and it was the funniest thing ever. Like, it had been more than a year that she'd been coming for Sunday school, and it never occurred to anyone that the kids had never seen her out of her chair. She hopped up and squealed, and silence. Yeah, that was it. It was a good one. Another funny story about Kayla. Kayla used to go for transfusions at Sick Kids Hospital starting from when she was about 10 years old. And Dad would take her, and they would get there driving down the DVP. My husband and I lived in Toronto at the time, and I worked from home. And one day, Kayla decided she had to go pee as they were on their way. So Dad, "Oh, don't worry, we're near Tori's house," pulled in, came up, she went pee, on they went. 6 weeks later, they were there again, have to pee. About a few months of this, and then Dad realized, as they're coming down the DVP after about the third or fourth time, she said, "I have to pee." And so Dad said, "Okay, we'll pull into Tori's." And then he could hear her saying under her breath, "Go see Tori Kay, go see my sister." But she didn't have to pee. She just wanted to come in and say hello. So Dad was having to plan extra time for their drive down, thinking she would have to have a bathroom break, but really it was not. It was just social. Oh, she was funny. I guess one of the last things to say about Kayla, and it's a little more serious, but Kayla had blood transfusions for years and hundreds of them, years and years, regular ones. And in lieu of flowers, what we had suggested was donations to Canadian Blood Services. In a fun twist, it didn't actually occur to us until I was reading it after we had submitted all the information, that actually you can donate by blood or money. So if that's another way, aside from McHappy Day, if you'd like to honor Kayla needed blood all the time for her sickle cell, and if it weren't for people who donated, it would have been a much shorter life for her. So when we say donating, you don't have to donate financially, even if you have it in you to give, as they say. That would be very much appreciated by us. As a family, we loved Kayla very, very much. She was family the minute she moved in, and always will be. And our hearts are a little bit broken because even though she stuck around an extra 20 years, it still wasn't enough. Because her favorite event was always her birthday, we were hoping, and this will probably take a little bit of organizing, but Mom has baked 180 cupcakes that Kayla enjoyed at every birthday. And we're hoping, they might not be possible, but our hope was to pass out the cupcakes, maybe light the candles, although there's only 6 lighters, so we'll see how that goes, and and sing a quick round of happy birthday to Kayla because it was her favorite song in the whole world.